I would just like to start off this review by saying that this is a Fire Bitterblue review, as you've seen in the title, and it is a non-spoiler review. So for all of those people who haven't read the book, this is okay to watch. It's totally spoiler-free. Okay, see you in a few. Okay, so I did a Graceling review a little while back, and this is the Fire Bitterblue review. I've decided to combine it into one because I want it to be non-spoiler and I wanted to kind of go over both of those books. So we're starting off with Fire. I would suggest reading after Graceling. The way that the series really works is Graceling is the first book, and then Bitterblue is the sequel, and Fire is the companion to Bitterblue. But I suggest reading it first because then it'll make more sense when you get into Bitterblue. It takes place in a different land called the Dells, which is like, if you've read Graceling, or if you even look at a map in the book, they have those, there's the mountain range, and then over that mountain range that no one crosses is the Dells. Really quickly about the Dells. The Dells are a warring nation. They're kind of like in a civil war with two different lords wanting to rule, and also the Picians. I always just said Picians. In the north are like sea folk, and they're coming down and raiding towns in the Dells and going back up. The main character's name is Fire, which is why the book is called Fire. Fire is what we would call a monster. They have these things called monsters, kind of like Gracelings are the things of, the Seven Kingdoms over on the other side. The Dells have monsters. Monsters are basically like a regular animal or a regular person. It can also be a human being. And instead of like normal colored fur and skin and hair, they have this bright, exotic, flashy, neon, beautiful pinks and blues and greens and purples and reds and that kind of fur. They have these special powers where they can get inside your mind and control your thoughts. They have every kind of animal, but they're also the monster form. So Fire is the last human monster, and you find out why in the book. I would say that Fire is my favorite character to read in the whole series. Although sometimes she's still really stupid and you want to hit her in the face with her own book. The story basically follows the Fire and her relation in the war, the civil war that's going on in the Dells at the time. And a love story does play, like it's like part of the book, but it doesn't overtake the book, and it's not a back seat to the actual fighting and the battles. It's a really nice balance to read. You don't feel like you're reading a love story or you're reading an action book. There's a little surprise of a little evil character in there, and I'm not going to say who, but I'm sure you're probably guessing if you've read Graceling. So, yeah. Next is Bitterblue. It was a really nice way to end the series, I think. And the way I read it, it's nice to end it like that because it kind of like ties all of the stories together, ties up the loose ends that were left in the books. So that's why I suggest reading it last, is another one of the reasons. It's kind of like Graceling in that it's very terrifying. The evil that we're talking about is an evil that exists. And in this book specifically, you're not facing the main character and all of his evil deeds. You're facing the aftermath after the evil character dies and the recuperation that the characters have to take and the kingdom has to take, and how Bitterblue leads her people out of that hole. Don't read it if you're 12. Just don't. Bitterblue is also a really fun character to read because we get a little bit of her in the Graceling book, and she's so young that you don't realize how much she's grown in the Bitterblue book until you start reading her, and you're like, wow, she's really mature and really relatable, despite the fact that she's a queen and I'm not a queen. Like, her problems make sense. Like, if I was her, I would be having these problems. You're not just reading about her story, you're kind of learning things with her. Not just things about the situation or about her kingdom or about the people or about King Lek. You learn actual things. Like, there's a whole section in the book on codes. It's a really unique book because, like I said, it focuses on recovering after the bad guy dies. which I kind of would have liked to see with more books. Everyone's like, oh, yip, yip, hooray, we can all go back to normal. But what is normal? You've been living this life for so long. How do you even define going back to normal? So that's why I really like this book, is it addresses that issue. A lot of the books leave off. That's just kind of like an overview of Fire and Bitterblue. Maybe I'll make a more in-depth review where there will be spoilers later, possibly. But right now, this is what you're going to get. If you like this review, please don't forget to comment, subscribe, thumbs up if you want to go read the books right now, thumbs down if you don't. Who does that?